Okay. Welcome to another episode of the Good in the Head podcast. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have someone on the show who is a luminary for others. He is a coach for coaches, and I'm really grateful to be connected with him and his work. I met him through Facebook. And that's where I actually have met some really incredible people over the years. I've reconnected with my own wife through Facebook. So social media is a great tool. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to create something like this together with you today on social media and share it with the world. Thank you for being a guest on the show. And when I had sort of asked to get to know you a little bit, you sent me a short video that was really informative. And if you don't mind sharing with the audience the the story behind the man that you are today.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you for the opportunity of inviting me as a guest. True privilege. It's your home, right? So just like as any guest, it's a true privilege to be invited into your home and share with your community and just provide value. It's just a regular conversation that we're having. And I'd love to just go deep and just share so that we could inspire, transform, really help and add value to people's lives. So 100% in terms of just Facebook, right? I don't know how we connected, some way, shape, or form. The stars aligned, we came together, and I'm blessed that we did, because now we get to share a bit of who we are, what we do. And the short video, Pete asked me, send me a little write up of what we could provide, right? Of what I'm about and what this is about. And I was like, I could probably write something and it'll probably be pages long, but the thing is, let me just shoot a quick video so that we could add some personality behind it. We could add some just emotion, and just sharing what the personal story was about. My parents immigrated from South Korea. They immigrated into Houston, Texas, where I was born. And, as life as immigrants, they were trying to make a decision. Where do we go for our family so that we could thrive and we could provide the best future for our kids? So my older brother and I. And should we go out west? Should we go out to LA? Or should we go east? Should we go to New York?
Those are big
And
decisions.
it is, especially when you're not fluent in the language, nor do you really know anyone, right? So, different time, different tribe, and just shows the resilience of what people can do when the decision is there. So they decided to go to New York, and I've been growing up in Jersey ever since. Still in New Jersey with my family as well. But they struggled. They were on the corners, street peddling, selling batteries, and whatever, just to make ends meet. And I remember seeing them waking up actually hearing them waking up at around 4 or 5 in the morning. Right, I wasn't awake at that time, and then coming back around 9 or 10 at night. Right, so it was
Wow.
it was a lot of a bit of absence within the familial structure. But the thing is, I understood what they were working towards. So that was the blessing that I got from it. I knew exactly what their intent was with it. And they accumulated a critical mass and eventually bought a souvenir store, right? So a souvenir shop in New York City that some way, shape, or form transformed into a t-shirt business, and then into women's fashion jewelry. So, of course, there's some correlation there. I have no idea how, but growing
Like you
up, I
said, the
was
stars align and things unfold the way they need to, right? That's
right.
cool. Big
So,
time.
just like Gary Vee, it was. I grew up in the family business, so every day off from school, every weekend, every summer vacation, I wanted to play like crazy. I wanted to play with my friends, but I was always at the family store. I was at the storefront. And one of the things that I saw when I was growing up was I did not want their lifestyle. And that was like one of the key things. I was like, we never took a family vacation together. It was always the mindset of like, one parent has to stay behind just in case, like, God forbid, the plane falls out of the sky, right? So it was a lot of fear, a lot of limiting beliefs. And, eventually that's when the economy got great, right? This was right before the crash in 07, 08. So I went to school wanting to become a banker. Actually, let me show them success with having a work-life balance, right? And I got into commercial banking, and I completely hated it. I completely hated just corporate. And
But you
at that
never would have
time,
known had you never tried, right? So
right,
that's cool. You tried. That's really cool.
100%. So, you know, we're always taught, or we always shy away from pain, right? And
Yeah.
we'll do as much as we can to shy away from pain. So I saw the pain as working 100-hour weeks, 7 days a week. And my thing was like, I want to avoid that as much as possible and just go into something else.
Understandable.
And my parents saw me unhappy. My brother saw me unhappy, and they're like, "Just come into the family business. We need you. It's booming right now. It'll take care of you financially at least." And I went in. My why of going in, the struggles that they've went through in order for us to have this life today. So that was my why. That was my intention. Was let me serve them at the highest level, right? Let me give them let me honor them for all the years that they put into this. And I adopted that lifestyle. I was working 100-hour weeks, 7 days a week. Must have done that for 6 years. And at the end of 6 years, yeah, I had money in the bank. I had the cars. I had the condo and whatever, but I had no time to spend it. It was. You have all the toys, you have everything on paper, it looks great, but you're completely miserable because you're missing out on life.
On a soul level, yeah.
100%. And I was like, this is enough. I don't want to be part of this anymore. So I left. And I started the website portion for the family business because I was like, this is where the business needs to go. But I was such the operator within the business that I never had time to really develop that portion of the business. So I left, and about 18 months later, I went completely broke. I hired my best friends thinking that they're the best employees. I thought that, the past successes of a storefront would carry into a website, right? It's a totally different animal. And it was a big learning and expensive learning experience. But the beauty that came out of that was, if I didn't go through that struggle, when I came back into the family business, it wouldn't have survived without that portion. So that's where the stars align. That's where it's like, this is a lesson that you went through in order for you to learn it, experience it, so that you grow to the next level. And I shared it with you. Pretty much went homeless after that 18-month period. Right, I was dating my wife at the time, and she was the one that was paying the bills, and she was the sugar mama. And I was at a loss. I went back into the family business, like I said, because that was the comfort zone. And about 2 years later, I got burnt out, frustrated again. And it wasn't until I saw a Netflix documentary in November of 2016 of a big guy with big teeth who curses like a sailor.
Of course, we're talking about Tony Robbins
and the legend Tony, right?
Yeah.
And I must have watched that.
Sorry to interrupt. The documentary was called "I'm Not Your Guru." Is that right?
Correct. So definitely a great documentary to watch. I watched that thing 4 times that night. And my wife is, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. It's just resonating. And I have like all these like happy tears coming down my face. And in 2017, I was like, I need to see if this guy is the real deal. So it was the first time I got introduced to Tony Robbins was in November 2016. And I was at his The first event that was in 2017 was Business Mastery in January. So it's like 3 months of exposure to this guy, and I'm at his event.
Wow, that's commitment.
Completely changed my life. And I found my passion. I found my purpose. I was doing it. I just never labeled it as coaching. But I was helping business owners. I was helping executive buyers within the family business to show them this is what you do with marketing. This is what you do with sales. This is what you do with company culture and whatnot. And so seeing them thrive. And at that time, I did join a mastermind of Tony's, and I did not know how I was going to afford it, nor did I know how much time it would take in terms of just time investment, because you got to go traveling with him all around the world. And it was an experience. It was beautiful just from the transformation portion of it. I came away with so much knowledge, so much experience from that just 1 year. It feels like that 1 year accumulated to more transformation in my life than my entire life.
All right, now I've got a question for you. That's interesting. So that's a huge commitment. And most of us as humans are pretty much fear-based. We create from a place of fear and wanting to survive. And expanding out into creating from a place of thriving and abundance from within, that's difficult for a lot of us to learn how to do and to practice and then eventually master. What gave you the courage to step out and put money into something that you probably didn't even have at the time? I mean, how can you be such a believer, so full of faith, and be so willing to really just lose everything in order to do something you know nothing about yet? What gave you that drive?
And this is a conversation that I actually had with a friend and a mentor of mine just yesterday. So, while being in a family business, while being, just growing up, I felt powerless. And I felt a lot of powerlessness. There were events in my life where I did not have control of it. And we've all had instances, some way, shape, or form, where it feels like we're powerless in that moment.
Yeah.
And it carries throughout the rest of our life. If you take a look at what you're doing today, it kind of resonates from that one place of that instance, right? And at that time, it was like I was kind of tired of being powerless.
So you had faith that doing this would then empower you and help you to create the life you really want.
It was that. And the other thing that was there was a message that came from my heart saying that, look, Tom, if you don't do this today, you'll never do it.
I love that.
So just step into it. God will provide some way, shape, or form. Step into faith. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't the most glamorous thing, but I'm glad I did. Because if I didn't go through that experience 4 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am today.
That's, to me, a success story, truly. And the reason we wanted to have you on the show and to sort of expose my audience and others to you is because if you can do it, if Tony can do it, if anybody can do it, I mean, it's possible for anyone else to do it. I mean, we can go out there and find people that are living the lives and creating the lives that we want to and learn from them. And I see you as a source of learning for myself and for many others. And so I'm excited to get this content out there for sure. Isn't it interesting how in our lives, the most devastating struggles that we go through end up being the biggest blessings eventually?
100%. to it sucks at the moment. And a lot of the times, like when we have those devastating moments, we feel paralyzed. We feel like, how are we going to move forward from this? We feel like my life will never be the same.
So how does one, um, s- instead of stepping back into that comfort zone, the comfortable known, expand into the uncomfortable unknown? Is there certain things that they can think or do, beliefs, perspectives? What would you suggest?
For them, I would say, at least from my experience, it was, I was tired of living in pain. I was tired of living in struggle. Why live there? My belief is that life doesn't lie. My belief is that God doesn't want us to struggle. He wants us to thrive. It's just our choice that we want to remain in the struggle, that we've been conditioned to, you have to work hard. Making money is tough. Um, you know, um, there's so many conditionings and learnings, and it's not bad, because that's probably the best that they knew at that point.
Our parents, you mean, and our teachers when we were
Parents,
younger?
teachers, society,
Society. Yeah.
right?
So
Are we
yeah, the programming of a young child is interesting, isn't it?
100%? We learn, what is it? 80% of our learnings come within the first 5 years.
And then our
And
subconscious is programmed and we operate the whole rest of our lives, some of us, from that programming and those ill-perceived ideas of a small childlike mind.
right.
That can be either devastating or super empowering. I
Mm.
mean, who is it? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, uh, and quite a few others. They talk about how, you know, children that are raised up in really wealthy families, even if they're not that bright, tend to be wealthy because they have wealthy perspectives and beliefs, ideas, habits programmed into them when they're young, and they just operate from that place. It's natural, it's easy.
Mm.
And then so many more people who are taught to operate in the survival mode or a place of, oh, fear, we need to create in order to survive instead of focusing on the thriving eventually. I mean, most of us really do operate from a place like that. And to hear your story yesterday when I watched that short video you sent me, I was so excited. I was like, this is a guy that I can learn from. So many other people can learn from because you're one of the few, that stepped out of that comfort zone into the uncomfortable unknown and expanded. And that to me is exciting. That shows a high level of commitment, integrity, and self-empowerment. And to know that you've created something so much bigger than where you were at is exciting for me to observe.
Thank you. It's one of the biggest things that really frustrated me while I was in the family business was I wanted to create a bigger impact. I wanted to create more.
Mhm.
I wanted to live a life of helping the powerlessness. Right. My mission is to provide 250,000 meals for kids in the Philippines and 40 million days of clean water for people in Cambodia. And I've always had, um, a mission in terms of building out schools and hospitals in third world countries. And I felt like the vehicle that I was using within the family business was not going to get me there. So it was frustrating in terms of like, yeah, the security is there, but is it really fulfilling?
Mm.
And
Tony Robbins had 6 human needs. I'm sure he's gone over them in the many seminars that you've been to. Um, I've got them on my wall. I can't spit them out off the top of my head. but I go through those, and one of them is security,
Mm.
the comfortable known, and then another one is variety, but then it goes down to purpose. And it, how impactful and purposeful is that? Not only to intend on feeding 250,000 children and providing water to those in Cambodia that don't have clean, usable, drinkable, fresh water, but to start taking steps to then create that in this world. That to me is interesting. What are you doing, and who have you gotten with so far to start making those things happen? And when did you realize that's what you wanted to do? That's pretty, that's very particular.
Right. Yeah, going back to the 6 human needs, the first one is certainty, right? We need a need to be secure. We need to know that we are kind of in control. We want to be certain in our decisions. The second one is variety, right? We do need a bit of uncertainty. We need to have some spice and flavor in life for us so we don't get bored. Third one is love and connection, right? So we need to feel loved. We need to give love. We need to connect with others. Fourth one is significance, right? We want to feel unique. We want to feel special. And fifth one is growth. So as Tony says, you're either growing or you're dying, right? So it's like who you become is what the true journey is about. And lastly, it's about contribution. And the first four is like the basics for us here. But if you want to reach true fulfillment, it's coming from that place of growth and coming from that place of contribution where you start feeling that fulfillment. Yeah. And, growing up, it was, I don't know. I don't know where I picked it up. Maybe it was friends that went to missions, at church, serving these people. And I wasn't able to go because I was in the family business during those times. But they would just come back of like just amazing stories of how they transform lives, of how they, went with a few resources, and they became resourceful and just made huge impacts within the community, and then saw the effects of what it looks like to help generations.
And the ripple effect that it creates is massive. And every single thing affects every other single thing. Everything is creation. Every thought, every word, every action is absolutely creation.
And I feel like that's where it came from. Currently working with a nonprofit called B1G1, and they vet all these social impacts, and their belief is, for every piece of business, why not do good in the world?
Yeah.
Right?
How can somebody learn more about this? Is there a website they go to?
Mm-hmm. It's called B1G1. So the letter B and then then the number one, the letter G and one.
G is in
girl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
B1G1.
Right.
.com.
.org.
.org. Okay.
Right.
Good to know. B1G1.org. Cool. I'll check that out later. That sounds like something I would actually love to be a part of and contribute to as well. And like you said, growth comes from contribution. Adding value to others makes us feel more valuable, re-energizes us, and empowers us to do even more for ourselves and others. I love that. How many of these Tony Robbins seminars have you gone to? The mastermind project that you went on for a year and traveled the world, that sounds fascinating. Can we start with that?
Sure. So by joining the mastermind, you get access to all the events. So, and how many events does Tony do a year? Probably within that 1 year, about 14 events. All different variety of topics that he covers.
To create balance, like
right.
finances, relationships, business.
Health, wealth, just going deep inside of personal, just personal deep work, right? So,
Nice.
and just unleashing your power and unleashing your potential within.
That's cool. Where did you go to within that year? I mean, you said you had traveled around. Were there any places you went to that stand out that you really enjoyed?
A lot of the events were in the US, mainly in Florida. There's some of the UPWs, say within Dallas.
UPW.
Right. So his Unleash the Power Within.
Okay.
And that was in New York, California, Texas, all different places. He does it virtually now, just with the current pandemic that we're still kind of fizzling out, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
But there's places like Fiji for some of his wealth and health seminars. Those were some of the cool places that we visited.
That's awesome. I've got to tell you a quick story about that documentary that you had mentioned earlier. So it was 2017, and my son was 14 at the time. He's now in the Army, and we came across that. And Tony Robbins' content for a few years previous had completely altered my perspectives, my beliefs, my mindset, the way I was interacting with people and everything in the world in really empowering ways. And when I came across that, I was like, oh, hey, let's watch this. And he rolled his eyes, whatever, Dad, okay. And he's laying on the couch. I'm laying on the floor in front of him. And halfway through, I was just bawling. And it was such an impactful documentary. Some of the stories in there really hit home for me personally. And my son goes, Dad, are you crying? And we're both crying. And I'm like, no, are you? And he goes, no, I'm not. Let's not ever tell anybody about this. And like you, we watched it more than once. And we had within us some kind of a feeling of unity when we watched that. It was very impactful, and it made us both want to connect with others on a deeper level and to provide purpose, and that was a turning point for my wife as well. She was not a Tony Robbins fan. She's like, oh, look at all the hype, all the BS, the smoke and mirrors and this and that. And why does he want to do all this? Really? Is it just to feed his ego? Blah, blah, blah. Right. After watching that, she became a fan. And it's easy to see why. For anybody interested, I'm not sure if I'm Not Your Guru with Tony Robbins is still on Netflix or not. I'm sure it's something that can be purchased or found on YouTube, but highly, highly recommend viewing that content. It was so good.
It's awesome that you got to experience it with your son. To have a father son experience, especially when it's like, oh, we're going to watch some personal development stuff. We don't know what this is about. And then all of a sudden it's like, you crying? No. Are you crying? No. Someone's cutting onions.
That's how it went.
Awesome.
You on your Facebook profile, it says believer, family man, and then it goes on and on. Can you share with us what the belief part is, and then a little bit about your personal family life?
100%. I grew up in church, and for many years, I felt at a moment you kind of get resentful of it, I think, in some way, shape, or form, right? So I remember I was going hardcore church until college, and then college, I was just like, this does not work for me, and I left church for years, maybe over a decade. And it wasn't until I became a father. And then I saw, wow, what a cool perspective. This is how God's looking down at us. And this is how much he loves us. And this is how much he cares for us. So it shifted in a way where my belief, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. He died for us. He is a God. and for everlasting life. But I see it more from a spiritual perspective. It's more of a relationship instead of a God, God servant kind of relationship that I grew up with, right? That you must serve him. But instead, just having a relationship with him. And God's going to be like, just like any parent, like, Tom, I think you should go this way. No, Dad, I'm good. No, I think you should go this way. It's like, I'm good. I'm comfortable where I'm at. I know this journey by myself. And what happens is like, boom, you hit that wall, and it's like,
eventually you learn to listen.
God, where do you want me to go from here? Or like, you get pissed off saying like, why'd you put me in this place?
Yeah.
When there's always been, little hints of like, step into it, trust and faith, believe. And coming from creating that kind of relationship, it's totally shifted. Let's have a talk. I need your help. What kind of advice would you give me, God? Where I have these resources, what should I do with it? And just having that conversation.
How can I make the biggest impact? How can I make the biggest ripples?
Right.
And you're a living testament to the fact that it is possible for any of us to do this. I love that.
It's not about me. It's never been about me. I have what I have today because of him. And we just have to realize that and remember that. This is a journey where we get to experience all of the greatness, but it wouldn't be without him.
Isn't it fascinating? I was having a conversation with my wife a couple of days ago on the way to work, and I was like, what if, just think about it. What if the whole reason we're here is to learn how to practice creating, to be more like God, And it really is true that what we think about becomes an energy and a force that emits or transmits outward from us, goes out into the field, amplifies, comes back to us. If we're angry and we're having an angry kind of day, we tend to attract and manifest more anger into our lives. Situations, circumstances, people match up with our vibrational energies, and there's more anger. If we're more focused on love and we have some tools to keep getting us back to refocusing on love and being love, then the same is also true. It emits and transmits from us, amplifies out in the field, and comes right back to us in so many different ways. And so I know that seeing what you've been doing and just researching you, the very small amount that I did, I can see how momentum has been building for you over the past few years as you expanded into the uncomfortable unknown, became comfortable with it, and then kept expanding into more and more of the uncomfortable unknown, and perpetuating and recreating similar situations that play off one another, that provide a greater sense of purpose and meaning and fulfillment, not just for you, but those that you're helping. And that's incredible to observe again. And I was wondering, what is it that you teach people or empower them with as far as tools, beliefs, and habits, and different perspectives that you have found most helpful for others?
Great question. Just expanding on what you were sharing just before in terms of just that vibrational energy that we emit. There was a quote I heard the other day. It's like, the spirit is not within our body. Our body is within our spirit. Right? So what is the energy? What does the expansion look like? Right? When we walk into someone that's super happy, we become happy because we become in their aura. We get some of that energy that they have, and yet they're the being right there. My biggest thing right now is there's so many online coaches saying that look, I could get you 6 figures in 6 days by watching a 6-second video, right? And for me, I'm just like, that's complete BS. Granted, you might be the one-hit wonder that does that, but is that sustainable? Is that something that will create a lasting impact in terms of, will you be in the business in the long run?
So you're differentiating between luck and consistency.
Correct. So it's taking the tools, right? So that we can learn how to transform ourselves so that we can transform our clients. It's learning the marketing and the sales, right? In order for us to create the income for more impact. And that's where I feel like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors within this game, in terms of show the struggle, show what's behind the curtain. That's how you connect with your audience. It's not like, let me tell you this, and this is how you're supposed to do it. That's cool. You might learn a skill or two, but the thing is, are you really connecting with them? Are you knowing who they are behind the scenes? Right? There's a bunch of business where it gets done by just like, oh, cool. You know what's really cool about you is I have a daughter too, and I just saw those family photos, and that's what really resonated.
Connection. One of those 6 human needs Tony Robbins teaches.
100%. And so what I share is, it's a morning ritual and an evening ritual. Right. So the morning ritual is takes about an hour. What I do is I'll do a bit of exercise for the first 20 minutes of that hour. And then I'll meditate and just really work on getting gratitude and being just really heartfelt in the morning. So I'll flood it with just great memories. I'll send out prayers, and I'll set my intentions for the day.
So you design your day ahead of time, and you you create the energy that you're going to then subsist off or live off of for the whole rest of the day.
Correct. So after that meditation, for the last 20 minutes, I'll journal. And the first thing that I start journaling is, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? What are the emotions I want to go through? So is it joy? Is it love? Is it impact? Is it, just being present for your family, being present with your clients? And granted, you might not hit it, but the thing is, at least you have the awareness and intent from the beginning of the day to try to set that as a tone. And then at night, I'll journal. And the 5 questions that I'll ask myself is, what was really great about today? What was really great about it? And write it down. The second thing is, what was not so great? Right? So you could...
How could you do it better the next time?
Right. So you could just write down all the experience and what wasn't as great as I hoped it was. The third one is, what can I improve? Right. So I had these great things. I had these not so great things. What can I improve? The fourth one is, what can I acknowledge myself for? What can I give myself a pat on the back? Even if you're having a crappy day, the worst day, it's good to acknowledge that pain or that kind of frustration. Just write it out, because you want to release it before you go to sleep. And the last question that you ask yourself is, what did I learn? And it's completely transformed my life in terms of just starting with a morning ritual and an evening ritual, so that it's just clear, released, and then you just start, you sleep a lot better.
So I'm sure that that wasn't a morning and evening ritual that you started off with like 100%. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm sure it gradually sort of became what it is now. What got you into the morning ritual, and what got you into the evening ritual? And then what made you sort of perfect that? Because it really is, in my opinion, a perfect way to start and design your day. and to end the day as well, right before sleep.
Mm. There was a book by Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club.
The
And
book.
that completely changes your perspectives.
It does.
And like the quote that I hear is, okay, at 5 a.m., that's when legends either wake up or go to sleep. Right. So it's a moment where you get your own space. The whole world is still asleep, and you get to set the intention of who you want to be throughout that day. And the night ritual did not come until about a year ago. And I saw, by doing that week after week after week, it just cool. I'm getting a ton of clarity, or I'm realizing that I have certain patterns that might be self-sabotaging. So,
Self-awareness leads to
right.
self-actualization. The more self-aware we are, the better we can create. I like that.
And that kind of gives you pointers of like, okay, what really frustrated you? And then you could ask deeper questions and just dig deeper into that to kind of figure some stuff out on your own.
So momentum's been building. Where do you see yourself in 10, 20 years from now? What do you see yourself doing? What are the impacts that you see yourself having made?
So in 5 years, 2 million meals for the kids in the Philippines, 400 million days of clean water, um, building out the schools in the Philippines, not just educationally, but just more from a self-awareness perspective, building out hospitals so that they could get the care that they need, and an impactful life in terms of doing what I do now at a bigger scale with more coaches, so that we live in a place where we have the resources to get help, that we don't have to do it alone, that you're supported.
So you're building a community right now that people can come to and join and be a part of. Um, and it's true that there is no such thing as a self-made man. I mean, and Simon Sinek always teaches, together is better. So where can we go to connect with you and um, help with these causes? Because I really believe that anybody that does help with something as beautiful as that will feel more fulfilled.
100%. So you could connect with me on Facebook. That's where I post most of the content. The Facebook community, Luminary Coaches. It's not a one-man show. This is a rippling effect that I'm hoping that everybody can help contribute towards. Right? If I could just drop the stone and have that rippling effect go out and have others come in and support, that is how we'll get to this goal, how we will accomplish it.
Those are very particular, precise, well thought out goals, and I really like that. One thing I noticed as we were talking is that every time you described going through something difficult, experiencing the contrasts of life, like this was really hard and it sucked. This here was really nice, and I wanted to expand into more of that. Having those experiences in life and the polar opposites of emotions and experiences is really informative. It's data, it's feedback coming at us all the time, and in so many ways, and to provide the opportunity for us then to decide and become more and more clear on exactly what we do want to focus on and not what we want to waste our energy on, right? One thing that I really loved about you was every time you went through a difficult scenario, you always then shared with me what the blessing was, what you learned from it. And that's not something I started doing until recently. And I think that's such a great habit for us to get into. I was wondering if that's something that you grew up doing or learned along the way to begin doing. And the whole idea behind gratitude being so expansive for what we really are, and stepping into more beauty and more love every day. I mean, that's such a great practice. Where did you pick that up?
It starts with a question. What do you want?
Most people don't know.
We don't know how to answer towards it. And that was, something that was taught to me by one of my peers was like, the $1 million question is, what do you want? And if you ask intelligently, you will get it. If you do it from the right place. And it is a choice. How we show up every day. We could show up pissed off, we choose that. We could show up happy as hell. We choose that. We can show up with lack of energy. We choose that. It is a muscle that you have to constantly just build. Even right now, when things are going great, I feel like it's a new growth cycle. So even with my identity right now, it's like it's being shredded, to be honest and be frank. This is where the whole powerlessness to courage comes through. Okay, I'm scared. I don't know where it's going, but how can I take this and make it the most of it? And if we do that, then it's a much better place than where we first started or where we would have been if we didn't make a decision.
Yeah, I love the questions. The better the question, the better the answer. It's almost like, why did you do this to me? Well, gee, let the mind then think of a million reasons why. Or, how can I is far more empowering. And then it sets the reticular activating system on course to then answer that question. And that's all we focus on, So questions, that's another really good habit that I've noticed that you're into. High Performance Habits by Burchard is another book. I noticed you own it. When did you come across that book first, and what has it done for you?
Came across that book about 2 years ago. And it was a place where, I was feeling burnt out again, right? There's a similar cycle, that this burnt out feeling, right?
Yeah, and that's okay. It's useful.
Right? Because we're growing in different areas, and we're growing in different, maybe like the thing with high performance is you don't want to be a high performer just in one area of life.
Yeah.
And when we become high performers, say at work, but when our performance maybe at home is not so great, we're pissed off and we're unhappy, we're not fulfilled. So how do you come and put everything all together so that you have a wonderful life? Not just a great job, but you have beautiful relationships. You have, you're just happier. You give more. And it comes from a place of not trying to get accolades from it, but, you're just coming from a place of, this is who I am at my core.
This is what feels right for me. This is what makes me light up. So balance for you is very important then in all areas of life.
I would say it's a continuous cycle in terms of always trying to improve. Granted, 1 year we might have a great relationship. The second year, okay, it could be falling down, and business could be expanding, right? It's this it's this pendulum of all these different things. But how do we create it so it's well balanced? It is correct, right?
It goes back to your question, what do you want?
Right. And where I felt like, I'll be honest, for about 2 weeks, my friend called it the desert of how.
The desert of how?
Right.
Huh.
And it feels like you're in a desert when you keep on asking yourself, well, how am I supposed to get this? Well, how am I supposed to do this? And everywhere, shape, or form you look around, it's just a desert. But if you start asking, what do I want? Why do I want it? You know, those are better questions to ask yourself, so that you have a true north, that you have passion behind what you're doing, versus just trying to figure out how am I going to do this? How am I supposed to make more money? How am I supposed to have a better relationship? And it's a cluster. It's a desert. You're alone. There's sand all around you, and it's hot and uncomfortable.
Yeah, and along the way there are oases, but to truly create a paradise, it's going to take some work, and nobody's going to come in and do your push-ups for you. You're going to have to do them all by yourself. You're going to have to acquire the skills, the attributes, the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience. And I'm a big believer in mentorship and gurus, teachers, parents that are empowering. Uh, there are so many people out there that are on social media or different sources we can go to for empowerment, for knowledge, for wisdom. I mean, we don't have to learn these lessons on our own anymore. Together is better, truly. And that's the value in a good coach. And I really appreciate you spending your time with me today and coming on the Good in the Head podcast. Pretty impressed by what you have chosen to create in your life, by what you're doing, the habits that you've formed, the practices that you've implemented into your daily practices, the questions that you ask, and the answers that you will inevitably get because you're asking those so repetitiously and consistently. That's exciting. You're someone who's a great example of someone who does the work and knows what they want and has a vision for the future. And not all of us do. And that's okay. I mean, we're all different, we're all unique, and we're all in the middle of our own life journey. However, there are better ways to be out there. And it's my opinion that we really can experiment with everything, experiment with the contrasts of life, the good, the bad, the dark, the light, the love, the hate. Get angry. That's okay. But also experience love, you know? And I really enjoy the opportunity to speak with people like yourself because it lights me up and I enjoy it so much. And your empowerment and your journey and the motivation and inspiration that I receive from just observing it really helps me out, and it causes ripple effects within my life. And then through me, I'm hoping you'll reach others as well. Are there any other teachings or ideas that you'd like to share with the audience today?
I appreciate you having me, Pete, and spending this time with me and letting me share. Um, when I first went into coaching, I thought it was a scam. To be hearing this is before I got into the personal development side. When I was in the family business, I was like, why would you go to someone to get like advice? Like I was in that mode. I just never knew. And it wasn't until I went to get personal development and saw how transformative it was. And now being able to transform entrepreneurs and leaders into coaches, it's the world needs more coaches. The world needs more people to help impact so that you don't do it alone. You don't have to go through the pain alone. That there is support, that there is people that can help you, that will support you, that will believe in you. That's the number one thing. The belief thing is like, I wouldn't have gotten into this business if someone didn't believe in me. I had no belief in myself that I could do it. And that's what coach does. They're not there to be like, sure, they could rah-rah you, but the thing is, true coaches will talk crap to your face and brag about you behind your back, right? So they're your number one supporters to really help you and guide you so that you become your ultimate self, regardless of what it is.
So a good coach will then provide a vision for yourself that you don't yet have. based upon answers to questions like, what do you want?
Right. It's your vision. You create it, whatever you want. There's no judgment. There's no prejudice against it. Whatever you want, that's your life. You only got one. Our jobs as coaches is just to help guide you and keep you accountable and keep you on track. This is what you wanted. What are you doing about it?
That's awesome. But really quickly, especially for children, teenagers, young adults, what advice do you have for them in creating the most beautiful and impactful life that they can throughout their difficulties? Because kids today are going through things that I never had to go through.
It's amplified, right? It's like if we were going to school and we got bullied by like two people, it's amplified by the internet. You know, everybody will start bragging on you. Be you. You know, be quirky, be a little weird. You know, those are the people that make the difference in the world. And to reach out, speak up. Don't hold it within. Step into courage. You know, if someone is saying something about it, the thing is, say, acknowledge that really hurts. And there was an interview with Larry King where Larry King was, I think he was doing his first talk show as a radio DJ, and he's like, he's playing the music up and down. And the general manager kicks in the door and he's like, "What are you doing, Larry? Like, we're in a communications business. Speak, communicate." And in his shaky voice, he's like, "I'm Larry King. Larry King is not my name. This is the one that was given to me. And this is the first time I'm on radio. And it's been a lifelong dream of mine. But I'm scared. I don't know what to do. But my intent is to just enjoy this and have a good time. And I hope you will too." And what Larry said is, at that moment, since acknowledging that, I was never fearful in my life again. So by acknowledging it, you don't give it power anymore.
That's
if you say
beautiful.
You're scared, you're fearful, acknowledge it, walk next to it and guide it so that we can bust your stuff. You're not going to hold me back.
I was out with my wife and a couple of really good friends of ours last night, and we went to go see a band play and have a couple drinks and just reconnect. And on the way back, we got into a little discussion, and I told them how, the reason that I listen to so much content all day long is because I'm really fearful that it's a possibility still after all these years and all the personal development that I've been going through and all the hard work that I've gone through, the new habits I've implemented, all this research I've done. I'm still a little fearful that I like to call it the itty bitty shitty committee that used to run the dark life I lived for so long will come in and try to take back over, the boardroom that I have in my mind, and that they'll start talking down to me again, and I'll go back to that dark place, and I don't ever want to go back there. And my wife, she's kind of my guru. She's my little teacher. But she looked at me and she said, "Well, let that crap go. You're not that person anymore." And it reminded me, Joe Dispenza has this awesome TED Talk about the neurological, physical, chemical, and structural truncated neurons that support a belief. And he said, "Watch this. Boom, this is a thought." And it lit up in slow motion. It's a video. And he shows these neurons reaching out and connecting. And he said, "That's a thought." Now imagine thinking the same thought habitually, consistently, repetitiously, over and over again for a month or a year or 10 years. He said, we now know that the way the brain works is that it'll recruit neurons from the thoughts that are no longer being focused on and energized. And it'll use those neurons to then build up a thicker, stronger structure physically and chemically and hormonally in order to support the new way of being, the new thought, new beliefs, new perspectives. So habits, I realized from that TED Talk, are so massively important. What are 3 habits that you would suggest right now to adults who don't currently feel fulfilled, who are feeling a little disempowered or hopeless?
You know, when we look back, usually we see the most outrageous and audacious people still living their childhood. Right? They step back and they're like, well, that's cool for you, but this is me. They own their identity in terms of, this is who I am. This is who I want to be. And to really step back into the things that really make you happy and lit up, and not have a particular result for it. If it's a passion project, do it because it makes you happy, not because you're trying to make income from it. Do something that that you haven't done in a while, that has lit you up previously. Is it reading? Is it learning courses? Is it spending time with your family? Is it work will always be there.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes your family and friends will not. So just remember to see what priority is. The habits, definitely just start with a morning ritual. The intention is super important to get you heart centered, so that when you're operating from your heart, going into your head versus your head going into your heart, that's where we have a bit of blockage. Right? When we're thinking, okay, let me think logically. And when you think logically, sometimes it disconnects you from your heart. It disconnects you from your alignment of your passion, of what you really want to accomplish. And some people call me naive. And it's like, dude, you're always like in la la land, like trying to move this thing forward. I'm just like, it's where my heart lies.
It's what's working for you. It's what re-energizes you, lights you up. I get that. So who cares what other people think in that case, right? Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep going.
Right. Because it goes beyond me. It goes for the mission. It goes for other people. Nice. There's other people on the other side that are needing the help.
I love that. And the High Performance Habits book that you have, that we were talking about, by Brendan Burchard. One habit that I got out of that book that was really useful was resetting the intention and revisiting the question, what do you want in this moment, right here, right now? What's my intention to be able to eventually get to where or what I want? And I literally set an alarm every day at work for every 45 minutes where I'll do like 4 or 5 sets of box breathing while I'm stretching and going through my mind. Where am I at right now? Where do I want to be? And refocusing, realigning, reconnecting, and that's a super useful habit. I just loved that particular one practice from his book. And it's filled with so many ideas and tools. What are some of the most useful books that you've come across, and maybe one reason why per book that you love?
5 a.m. Club.
By Robin Sharma.
By Robin Sharma. Definitely changes your perspective in terms of how to operate and the decisions that you make. And even in the book, it's like Stone Riley is a wacky character, but he's happy, successful. But at the end of the day, he's aligned with what his lifestyle wants, what he wants as a lifestyle, not as a job, or not as doing it for others, but just the way that he wants to live it. High performance habits is one of my favorites as well. Going through clarity, necessity, energy, to get the performance up, to get really clear and courage. That's I would say the ultimate formula, those 6 steps. Of course, there's all the Tony books, right? That'll help you kind of just re-engineer your insides. I would say those would be probably top 3 for me.
Nice. One of my favorite quotes by Robin Sharma is when he said somewhere, to read a book is to meditate with the author. And people think about meditation as sitting cross-legged in an uncomfortable position for hours in a cave somewhere, staring at a candle and emptying the mind of all things. But meditation is different for everybody, and we can experiment with all the various types of meditation. But that's another habit that I love using, which is new actually for me. I fought it for a couple of years. I was told by so many sources, you need to meditate. You need to meditate. And I knew that I should. I just was scared that I'd screw it up. And that fear kept me for so long from expanding into a very clear vision of what I truly am in this who I identify as well in human form. And through meditation, I've been provided so many useful, empowering insights that I don't think I ever would have had unless I'd begun meditation. And the book that actually made me finally try it out was by Emily Fletcher. It's called Stress Less, Accomplish More. And I first was introduced to her, of course, on a YouTube podcast through Tom Bilyeu, either health theory or impact theory. I think it might have been impact theory that Emily was on, but just phenomenal content. Loved that book. Are there any other suggestions on possible upgrades in beliefs or perspectives that you would suggest that you have found empowering in your own life?
Courage.
How does one cultivate courage?
You could be scared.
It's okay to be scared.
It's okay to be scared. But the thing is, you need to take action. And
regardless.
If someone is saying something and you're afraid to speak up. You might feel like, oh crap, they're judging me, they're talking behind my back, whatever it is. At least you got it off your chest. You did not internalize it and have that episode happen again.
What happens when we exhibit courage in that fearful moment?
We disconnect from that thought, just like Joe Dispenza said. Those strong neurological threads become lessened, because now you kind of broke that thought in terms of like, wow, maybe that thought isn't right. Maybe that thought was incorrect. Life is a bit different from what I thought it would be.
To rid oneself of fear, then, one option would be to expand into courage and take action, because it weakens the fear and no longer has control over us.
Right? You acknowledge it. It's okay to be scared. Just do it anyway, because you don't want to be controlled by this thought.
Interesting. That reminded me of a personal experience I had my senior year in high school. I was able to work in the school cafeteria, for which I received a free lunch and like $3 an hour back then. So I had a paycheck coming in, and people would look down on me and call me stupid or nerdy or whatever. I didn't care. I was making a paycheck and a free meal, and I had these three really great friends that would wait for me, and we would all eat together. And I thought, in retrospect, I was like, wow, we're really good friends, waiting to eat all that time when everybody else was having an enjoyable time. So inevitably, we'd end up at one table. There's just the four of us. And then a few other people that also worked in the cafeteria at the time would be on the other side of the cafeteria, and it was empty. And I remember this day, I had never seen these two guys, and they walked in, and one of them grabbed this girl by the throat and picked her up out of her chair and was reached back to punch her in the face. And immediately I stood up and saw something wrong, and I was scared, but I had to do something or I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And that's how I felt at the moment. And so I went with a gut and listened to my intuition, and I spoke out and I said, "Hey, why don't you pick on somebody your own size?" And I stayed standing, and these guys looked at each other and looked at me, and he dropped her back into her seat and they walked my way. And these guys were really big. And they were twice my size. They were tall and they had muscles and they seemed a little older. And I was like, oh crap, I'm going to die today. And my friends were terrified. They were looking at me and looking at them. And they walked over to the door by where we were sitting and said, "Hey man, when you're done with your lunch, we'll be right here waiting for you." And I thought, yeah, I might die. And then I don't know why, but I got a little lippy, and I said, "Well, we're waiting all day. I'll go out those doors, over there." And so they came, and the one got in my face, and immediately I knew that I couldn't tolerate that. So I stood up and looked up at him. And I said, "What kind of a guy does something like that to any female? Uh, What's wrong with you? You're asking what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you?" And his buddy goes, "Hey, you know what, man? It's cool. He's right." And he tapped them on the shoulder and they left. And I figured, yep, I'm going to get jumped later. And within the hour, my sister had heard about it, came up to me and she goes, "You are probably going to die. They are members of a gang. You should have never done that." And I'm like, it's okay. I'm comfortable with that decision. I'm scared, but I'm comfortable with what I did. And from that moment on, every time I saw these two guys out in public, at the school, whatever, they just nodded to me and showed respect. And I was like, kind of blown away by that. A year later, they did end up in prison for murder. And that could have been me, but for some reason it wasn't. So one of the habits I've also implemented that I really love, which empowers anybody who wants to stray away from fear and step into courage, is to constantly, consistently listen to that gut instinct or the intuition that is within us all, that connects us all, and that helps us all. I think the more we listen to it, the clearer it gets, and the more we can hear it. Really do. Just like you're talking about working out and making the muscle stronger, that practice is also incredibly useful. That's not really a story I've told to anybody in public before, but it was a scary experience. And I still look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Oh my goodness. But I really believe that doing the right thing is more important than almost anything. And whatever that right thing is for us personally, lean into that.
And going through that experience, you don't live with regret.
That's true.
Because you know you did the right thing.
That is so true. Jim Rohn has this brilliant quote, and it is basically, we all live with one of two pains, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And he said the difference between discipline and regret is that discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. And that is so true. You're living a life of discipline, and I don't see much regret in your eyes when I look at you. I know that we can get caught up in our regrets sometimes, and shame and guilt. Are there any tools that you've used to expand out of shame and guilt in your personal development plan or journey?
No, with regret, there's a tool that Jeff Bezos uses. And he calls it, Tony calls it the rocking chair test. Jeff Bezos calls it the deathbed test, right? In terms of like when you're 80 years old, right? Will you be surrounded by the ghosts of regret, or will you be living in peace, knowing that you've lived your full life? So you make regret really painful, right? So that you avoid it. So let me take the road where it's a bit more disciplined so that I avoid that regret. So that I know at the end of my life, I've lived a full life. I lived my purpose. And with shame and guilt, a lot of it is a filter, right? Of we're not worthy, of we're not enough, of trying to prove yourself. When at the end of the day, you have everything. You're here. You know, it's for you to be present, for you to really enjoy it. Yeah, maybe you got crapped on in social media, but you've never met these people. Maybe you might have said something for you at that moment didn't come out correctly. You could always revisit it and say, look, I didn't mean to say it that way. It's not written in stone forever. You could always revisit it saying, look, you know, at that moment, I wasn't the person who I thought I would be today. Acknowledge it, step into it, own it, and correct it.
You're big on acknowledging and taking the power of the negative power away, and the negative energy and vibrations away from the creative process. And I think that's really useful, as we all create constantly everything around us or recreate it. That's wild. Through your story, I noticed that before your personal development journey and your personal expansion out of the old comfortable baseline emotional way you had of operating from, that you got really good at that, started practicing it, and acknowledging and journaling and asking better questions and reviewing at the end of the day, you know, what was I proud of? You self-validate. What was I proud of myself today? Why do I appreciate and accept and love myself today? And those, when reviewed daily, can become a focal point from where we can draw upon validation rather than seeking those outside sources, which I was trained from a young age to do. Oh, look, you didn't get an A, you're bad. Oh, look, you didn't get that award, you suck. Oh, look, you're not great at sports, you might as well quit or give up because you'll always suck. You know, all these very limiting beliefs came from this one moment in time, this one painful moment that created years of suffering. And the beautiful thing about what you've done is you did something incredibly uncomfortable, stepped out of your comfort zone, way out of it, and then have proof and real-time feedback and information and data from whence to draw upon to know that you made a good decision, and really believe that that's possible for anybody. That's just, you've got such an incredible story, and it's so akin, you know, to the story that I read about Brendan Burchard, about how, you know, he didn't term her or coin the phrase, you know, like, or use the phrase sugar mama, right? And I used that once around my wife, and she goes, don't you ever say that again. Oh, why? What's going on? You know, and that was real-time feedback. She goes, I don't want you to think of yourself like that, and I don't want you to think of myself like that. That's a creation. And I was like, oh, wow, she's right. I need to work on what I'm thinking, how I'm saying things, and what I'm doing. Your parents, you're still blessed to have them around. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And they're still working their butts off. They created an environment for you that I think you obviously have been able to begin really thriving in and providing, perspective and motivation and clarity for others through. Um, if there's a message that you could say to your parents right now, a message of gratitude, what would that be?
I have the blessing to see them just about every day. They get to play with my daughter and watch after her. So I've seen, just joy, a renewal of just life. Right? It's like this is what they missed out on previously because they didn't have the opportunity. They didn't create the opportunity to do so. And nothing wrong on them. This is the life that we walked into, the life that we created, the life that we're blessed with. But to really thank them for their sacrifice, their love. Just have a better understanding as a parent, just seeing us become parents and just see what their life looked like. It's deep appreciation, it's deep love, it's deep gratitude just for creating it. And they did the best with what they had, with what was available. And God bless, they're still around to enjoy it and have us enjoy it as well. Not a day goes by of like not thinking about them or honoring them.
I love that. You also then were blessed with parents who did the very best that they knew how to do. We're very lucky. Time is the most valuable commodity that we have as humans during this journey. And we all spend it however we want to. But I love the question, what do you want? And is what we're doing today or right now furthering us towards that goal? That's the question. I really appreciate you, all you've shared. You're just an incredible human being. I'm grateful for our connection. Love you. Love what you're doing. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that this has been a really useful time spent for you. It has for me. And I've got nothing but appreciation and gratitude for you. Thank you so much.
100%. I feel the same way. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for holding the space for this opportunity for us to share with others that everything is not so pretty, that we could talk about this stuff without having to feel any shame, guilt, or having to have any recognition for it.
Nice.
Right. So thank you, Pete.
Thank you. For all of you listeners out there, I hope that you got as much out of this interview as I was blessed to get. I'll have all of the links to reach this great man down below in the comments section of the interview. If you haven't gone to the Good in the Head podcast on YouTube and subscribed and shared some of the content that you found most useful, I highly recommend you do it. I'm blessed to be able to speak with many people like this man, and there's always something that everyone has that they can teach us or remind us of to empower us to continuously upgrade and realign and reconnect with what we are as we work on the who we identify as well in these human bodies. Thank you so much.